Alright guys and girls, we're back with some updates. Today we're going to go over some of the issues that we ran into with our 5-litre Windsor V8 AU XR8 and a bunch of Go Fast mods. You would have seen in a previous video that we made this look like this, took factory parts like these and made them look like this in the pursuit of happiness and going faster. So we ended up going from a 15.6 at 90 mile per hour over the quarter mile in our factory AU XR8, which is a little bit slower than most would expect. But you will clearly see why later in the video. We took all these factory parts and modified them to increase our airflow by removing the choke points as much as possible. We managed to knock that 15.6 down to a half respectable 14.6 at 96 mile per hour without tuning via J3 chip and the airflow mods we just spoke about. We then went ahead and purchased a set of 411 diff gears from Peregrine Motion in Townsville and got them into the car. This resulted in only a 2/10 gain over the quarter mile, as we now had a little more issues with traction from a dig. I suspect these will help more so when the big cam goes in. Even so, we did manage to hit a sub 6 second 0 to 100 on the street with a 5.9 second. We also checked our 100 to 200 km/h time, so that we can back-to-back run it against the heads and cam and intakes you will see later in the video. How did this come about? Well, we started to hear a knock on cold start, and I knew the bearings had a little bit of life left in them, but not too much. So we started ordering parts for the car, as this is currently my daily. This kind of had to happen quickly. So out came the 5-litre, and we started pulling it down to assess what we needed. Have you ever seen something you wish you hadn't? Well, we did, and as you can tell, she was fairly grimy at first glance. Initially, things didn't look too bad until I pulled the pistons out and got a light into the bores. It looks like this old girl got hot at some point and transferred some of the alloy from the pistons onto the bore walls on about 4 of the 8 bores. This weekend refresh now becomes a bigger thing, and we can now see why I ran half a second slower in the quarter than I expected when this car was stock. In saying that, I'm a sucker for an excuse to make things fast, so I got the honing tools out, fixed the bores up. As bad as they looked, it didn't take too much to get them straight again, using a 3-arm medium stone hone followed by a finer grade ball hone for the nice finish you see here. Now, I'm no professional machinist, but I have done this before on boosted cars with great results. Once we achieved the reasonable result, I left it to wait for parts to arrive. Speaking of, I decided to stick with the factory iron GT40P heads, as they will support my airflow demand at 7,000 RPM. With the work you will see next, we opted to go with some nice new valves with undercut stems. These 1.94 intake valves and 1.55 exhaust valves are larger than the factory valves at 1.84 and 1.46 inches, which is great. However, next time I do a set of these, I'll get the sonic checker out, as I was very limited by not knowing the casting thickness, especially at the short turn radius with the larger valve eating up more material to achieve a nice radius. I did these heads very quickly due to needing the car back on the road, and my friends down at J&L Machining did some really nice work very quickly for me on cutting the seats in, new K-line guides, and shaving the heads 50,000s, which resulted in a 55cc chamber. The factory chamber is around 60-61 cc's on these heads. Accompanied with my thinner head gaskets than factory, we should be right around 10.1 compression now, potentially a little bit more, but we'll see on final assembly, which is a full point more than the factory engine at 9.0 to 1. You can see here the progress as I work on the heads, starting with the seats cut in for the larger valves. You can actually see there's quite a bit of material to remove here, and it did take quite a while. Being iron. Notice the port bias on the bore wall side of the ports. We did all the usual things, streamlining the guides, laid back the short turn, calculated the minimum cross-sectional areas needed for the RPM that I want to turn, and feed this 5-litre. We left the throat at around 89.5% to match our lift, which is around 600 thousandths on the custom cam, although that throat does have some bias to it as well. The chamber's got some minor deshrouding, although I finished this off after the footage was taken. And after all this, the heads were looking pretty nice for a few days in the shed and much cheaper than a set of alloys. With comparable performance to the 165 series heads, our head here came in at 160 cc's. I believe the factory's in around 140, 145 cc port volume. Once you start stepping up on the engine size, these castings will become restrictive when compared to the larger, well-designed aftermarket heads. But I'm here to show you what you can achieve with what you have in the shed, not just in your wallet. Next time we will look at the reassembly, some custom intake work that I've been 3D printing, and what the plans are to go ahead with this car. I don't know about you guys, but I think it is possible that we may dip into a 1290 naturally aspirated. Let me know what you think. I have been 13s before with an NA 302. It was a T-Series 5 litre of mine, and it was 5-speed manual. So I think we could probably dip into the 12s if we use our heads here, and hopefully it goes that way. Let me know in the comments what you think, if that's possible, if you know anybody with a 5 litre AU or even E-Series that's gone into the 12s. I know there's a lot of lighter cars that definitely would have and gone much faster than that. This is a pretty basic setup in a pretty heavy car with a 4-speed auto, so we'll see how we go. We'll definitely get the most out of what we have here, but I think if anything it will sound like my GT, which I do miss, and we can get back into doing this while we wait for the GT engine to come back from machining. So thanks for watching and being patient. It's been a very busy year here. Say hi in the comments and help me along with a like if you enjoyed this content, and I'll keep it coming. Thanks guys.